What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm back with another FSD video. I've got my buddy Colin here. He is an avid of FSD? Hater, believer.
You know, I'm an avid wait and seer.
All right, avid wait and seer. You've never really ridden along in FSD before.
Not really. I think we've done it a little bit, but
okay. So this is arguably the most polished version of FSD, which you'd expect every new version to be the most polished version, ideally. People describe it as incredibly smooth. So that's kind of been my experience, but I've still been able to get it to fail in certain situations. So I'm interested to get kind of your feedback as you just experience it doing everyday things, turns and navigation decisions and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to jump in anytime and I'll try and, prompt you with some questions. I did want to mention, I do have 12.5.1 sitting and waiting. It of course popped up the second we started filming. So unfortunately we are just on 12.5, but I think it's close enough that we'll be able to get something good going. But I will also have a 12.5.1 video coming shortly after this one. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, so I've already got it in drive. I'm just gonna push the button and we'll just go. And it is also raining, so we may get a FSD degraded option. We'll see. The rain should be stopping here in a bit, but so it seems like it's like unsure with these cars in the way here. But it's gonna go now. So that's kind of ballsy, huh?
A little bit. It's a four-way stop, so I'm surprised.
Yeah, it was. I've had good experiences with it stopping for speed bumps, and then like the other day randomly in my neighborhood it just decided not to. It's just flying over the speed bumps, and I was like, okay, I gotta report this. And it does let you do that. It will let you disengage, or when you do disengage, it'll let you record a little audio clip.
Something just happened. A little heavy on the brake to do that. It does it like it's eager to really accelerate.
Yes.
Like if it thinks it needs to get up to a speed, then it will.
Yeah, it puts it on for sure.
Yeah. Which seems like, I mean, is that a driving mode thing? Like it seems like it would be rough on efficiency.
Yeah, there is you can switch modes. So we are on the assertive driving mode. So it's going to be a little bit more forward, and we don't have minimal lane changes on, but I'm going to turn that on for this drive because I prefer to drive in that. Now it does have a free lane here, and it's being real hesitant, maybe because that car was a little bit in its lane, but normally it would kind of swoop right around that. So, and it does kind of what people describe as like the NHTSA stop, and then it creeps up. So it comes to the full stop and waits, checks around, and then it will go. And that's all because of all of the guidelines that have been put in place.
Yeah.
It very strictly follows the like coming to a complete stop at a stop sign. It will not roll a stop sign, which is good. You don't want it to roll a stop sign. But.
Yeah, especially something like, I'm imagining, I mean, at least from my perspective, like people who are going to have anxiety about something like this, like following it to the letter helps in assuaging some of that.
It does also have a speed auto max, or the speed set to auto max. I forget the actual term. I think it's called automatic speed offset. So what it will do is basically like it'll drive based on how people are driving around you.
Yeah.
So if people are going 12 over, it'll go 12 over.
Right.
Which I think is really interesting. It needs to be in the left lane here, so that's good. We did that. But sometimes, because it's got that speed offset, it'll be in like a 25 going 37. And I'm like, if I get hit here, I'm getting a ticket.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, it doesn't matter how... Like, there are... You almost want it to be more contextual. Like, if we're driving through a neighborhood, stick to the letter.
Yep, exactly. And sometimes it will. Sometimes it's really weird how how it ends up deciding.
That's probably model training stuff,
Mhm.
you know?
I do find like stuff like this to be a little bit unnatural
Yes.
because like a human driver would not slow down that much there.
No.
They would kind of keep going and accelerating through that turn and then kind of brake as they're turning. But it's not wrong necessarily. It's
right.
just
It doesn't feel like how a person would drive.
yes. And see how we're going here, 47 and a 35.
Yeah.
Like I could get a ticket here
For sure.
on this road for sure. And like I'm responsible. I'm not driving. I haven't touched the wheel. I haven't touched the pedals. I'm responsible.
You just send that ticket straight to Tesla.
Yeah, let's see if I get pulled over in here. Nope, I didn't. Thankfully. I'm sure I got my wallet. Yeah, at Elon Musk, here's my ticket. I always try and remind myself that, like, while it does some weird stuff, it is getting better and better with every single release, and there is still nothing else that does this.
Yeah.
End to end, point to point, nothing.
Yeah.
There's some really great semi-autonomous driving systems. You've got one on your Hyundai. You've got Highway Drive Assist 2.
Yep.
Amazing system. Volkswagen has Travel Assist. You know, there's some other systems that have really advanced driving systems that will take you, you know, hands-free, Super Cruise, hands-free, you know, whatever. But nothing you can just put in a destination and it just takes you to the destination.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we doing? Like, we're arguing, like, you have to compare it to itself.
Right.
And I had a dude in my comment section of one of my previous videos arguing with me that it's a level 2 system and plenty of other, there's dozens of other manufacturers out there that have level 3 and 4 systems. And I kept saying, name one that does what FSD does.
Yeah.
One. Outside of Waymo.
Yeah,
And Waymo's geofenced.
That's the interesting part of it. Is like Tesla is the only, I think there's an argument to be made that Tesla is the only company that has something like this that has the reach necessary to sort of get it out and start doing anything with it.
Yeah.
Waymo can be a better system. I mean, I don't know if it is, but it can be a better system. But at the end of the day, it's not performing in the same types of environments.
Yeah. It has a giant, like, system on the roof. Like, it's not driving through the park, you know,
right.
Inconspicuously.
Right.
See, this is a type of situation where I'd want it to go closer to the speed limit here. Because you've got golf carts going across,
there could be kids.
Pedestrians, kids,
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah.
And I mean, it'll stop, I'm hoping. Like, there's always the hope. But, like, just for appearance's sake, maybe we can slow it down a bit through here.
Yeah, it likes to stick towards
The right side.
the right side,
Yes,
too.
it does. And it will change depending on what's around. It'll shift sides around. So if there's like a big semi or a wall on your right, it'll lean more left.
Yeah.
And you will notice that as of 12.4.3, which was the previous version of the one I have now, it is hands-free. So I no longer have to reach up and spin the scroll wheel to let it know I'm there. It watches me with this cabin camera. And if I look away at you for a bit, it'll pop up on here, pay attention to the road. You don't have to look back. But you can go, I've gone every single drive entirely hands-free, which people argued with me about, you know, FSD versus Super Cruise. You know, Super Cruise is hands-free, FSD is not. And I'm like, well, it is now. Literally like a week and a half later, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's pulling me into a parking lot. That's nice. Now, it does have auto park, but it's not going to park me in a spot. So it's probably just going to...
It's going to do a little wiggle.
And stop. And we're here.
Hmm.
And then it won't do anything else.
Yeah.
Except for probably try and fidget around a little bit, which it has the auto park. So why does it not just park me in the spot?
This is so interesting. I love... Like, this speaks to, like, weird input conditions that it's hallucinating, like, directions that it should drive.
You know what it speaks to? It speaks to wanting to go in reverse. but it can't go in reverse. It's not allowed yet. But you can tell that based on the videos it's been trained on,
Yeah, that
it
in
wants to
situations
go in
like
reverse.
this,
It
people are
says
gonna
there's
reverse.
something in front of me, I need to go in reverse, but
Yeah.
the system won't let it, so it just fidgets around for a while.
I noticed it sort of fidgeting at a stoplight earlier, too.
It does a little bit. It will do kind of this. I'm going to disable it. It'll do kind of this like
Yes.
where it's disengaging the brake and engaging the gas a little bit, like over and over. The acceleration, not gas. But yeah, we can't go in reverse yet, so I'm going to have to back us out of here.
I love this animation that they do of sort of projecting the
path,
the spline that it wants to travel
Yep.
on. It's sort of it's almost like a snake's tongue sort of sticking out.
Re-engage it here. Let's see if it'll. Yep. Take right over there. That was very, very aggressive.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, I need to pick up those bottles back there. I brought like cleaning solution so I could clean the screen, and it's just rolling everywhere. The acceleration, it's been really good for a while. Like, especially on this last version, it was smooth for like the first day and a half, and then it just decided to just keep doing this very like aggressive acceleration. And I don't know if that's because I'm in assertive. When you read the description, it just says follow distance will be closer. It doesn't say anything about speed.
Right.
So I don't know if it's actually referencing anything specific or if it's just like, this is how I'm going to drive. Because it will launch off of a stop sign.
Yeah.
See, they're giving me the right of way, but FSD doesn't see that, and now it does. They could have gone. It
was their turn.
Yeah, but they were letting me go for some reason, so. And it supposedly this version will read hand signs and flashing lights. So if someone like waves you on, like a pedestrian or something, it should be able to read that. It does not read construction signs though. So the other day I had some issues where it would try and take me down a closed road, and instead of just going past it, it tried to sneak past the road closed sign, which was very assertive.
It's funny. Is you want to give it sort of a personality when it starts to do things like that.
Yeah. See, now we're in a more kind of open area with less stuff going on, and it's going slower.
Right.
Maybe it detects the road conditions because it is a little wet back here. Because it will drive slower when it's wetter outside. So.
It does whip it.
Yeah. No, it'll sling you around a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. It makes you question, like, okay, well, just because people don't drive like this. Mm-hmm. Granted, there are some things that, heavy acceleration coming off of a stop sign, like I said, it could hurt efficiency.
Yeah.
But I mean, in some cases, do people do things because it's just human nature to do certain maneuvers sort of slower or to take turns in a specific way, and actually it's more efficient to take them this other way? Or is there even that much thought being put into that?
Right.
Like that's what comes with sort of training and an AI model on things like this, is the levers become a little bit more nebulous and you can't really say this is how it should take a turn. It's more like this is how the training data says turns are taken. So it's just going to do its best to predict what the training data would have done.
Yeah.
In a similar situation.
I always wonder if in that training data that they take in, if it's strictly visual, or if they get accelerometer data, or gyroscope data, or any of that type of stuff. I mean, this whole portion so far since we left that little outlet at the park has been really smooth.
Yeah.
Like the kind of gliding between lanes and not being so stringent about turning and things like that. Like it's felt a little looser. And I have had people say, like, take it when there's traffic, like, or people will complain and be like, the roads are so empty. And it's like, FSD doesn't behave differently when there's cars around. You know what I mean? Like, it does the same thing, whether there's all these cars here or not.
Yeah, I think people are maybe getting at, like,
This is a really tricky intersection.
How do people behave, or how does FSD behave in unpredictable situations, or situations that aren't going to come up a lot in training data? And this is probably a good example. Like,
Yeah, this is a real tough intersection. Because it wants to let this person go, but this person can't go because of that, so now he's going to go, and then we should go right after. But we're not, because why did that person go? Okay, well, I mean, that was a very weird situation with people not doing the correct thing,
right,
and it still handled it fine.
Yeah. I think it's largely, I mean, if you were going to try to convert somebody into an FSD believer, like, that's the sort of situation that people need to see how the car behaves in.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't think people don't think about how they're going to behave in any given situation. They sort of wait for the situation to happen.
Yep.
And they think about, unconsciously, they think about sort of how, every other time I've been in a situation like this, what should I do? And then they do it.
In the past, in that exact situation where there were two cars crossing like that and it was headed straight for him, it would have slammed on the brakes and waited.
Yeah.
But that didn't even, it just let off a little bit and just glided past them
Yeah.
as they went. That was perfect. When people describe, like when people say, I want this to feel human-like, that move was human-like.
Yeah.
We had to reset the GoPros because they overheat, so we're going to put in a new destination.
This video is sponsored by?
Sponsored by whatever company can make an action cam that doesn't overheat. Not you, GoPro. But we are dealing with thunderstorms.
Inclement weather.
There it is. Full self-driving may be degraded. So it's cutting through the gas station.
That's fun.
That is fun.
Just like a real person would do.
True. I would do it for sure. But that's an interesting situation or representation of the fact that it doesn't always do exactly what's on the navigation. Sometimes it will take little shortcuts and then the navigation will update. So you know it's not solely running off of like
the navigation.
Raw turn by turn directions.
Which is, I think, another thing, like we were talking about before the GoPros cut out. Like if you were going to train it on anything but, or I mean, if you were going to use anything but a neural network to drive this, then that sort of thing would be, it would add so much complexity. But instead you sort of get to shove all this stuff in a black box and say, I don't figure it out.
Yeah. We are also using auto wipers here that are all camera based. So it decides when it needs to turn them up or down.
That is smart.
It also doesn't work well at all.
Oh, well.
I wish I could say it did. Now it's doing fine right now. Like it's turned up the intensity here now that we're getting a little bit more rain. But
that's interesting that it doesn't work that well. I wonder what the challenges are to doing something like that.
The sensors are up here, so it's like unless there's a lot of water like up here, it doesn't know this whole area over here.
Yeah, you almost want to put a camera like on the back of this screen.
Yeah.
And look out the front windshield and see.
Or, just rain sensors.
I mean, yeah.
On the wipers, like every other car. No, Tesla's got to do vision only. Tesla vision only for everything.
You know, as somebody who like loves the challenge of doing things,
right?
Like I can get behind that a little bit because it's almost more intuitive because rain sensing wipers, like you're taking in some amount of like conductivity data, maybe,
right,
and sussing out sort of how much water is on the windshield. With image data, you're just looking through the windshield and you're asking, can I see?
Right. Is it blocked or not?
Which is what the human is doing.
It's being pretty aggressive through this neighborhood with the rain and everything and inclement visual conditions and all that kind of stuff going on.
I mean, yeah, but also the person in front of us is too.
True. Yeah, that's true. It is kind of reading off of that person for sure. I took my ACT at Wagner here.
Nice.
Way back yonder.
I bet I did too, honestly. It looks familiar. If not the ACT, I've definitely been there for one thing or another.
I didn't do well.
Sorry to hear that.
If that's shocking at all to you.
Not, I kind of.
I was not a big school guy at the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big. I wanted to be a musician.
Sure.
I did not want to be a school guy.
Oh, that's everybody.
Things change when you get older, and you're like, hey, being smart is actually kind of cool.
Wait a minute. Knowing things is
Knowing
useful.
things is helpful to life.
I don't love the ambient lighting in here. I want to be honest. I feel like we've talked about this before.
What do you not like about it?
It doesn't feel like it's doing anything.
Yeah, I get that.
It just kind of we wrapped the interior of your car in a glow stick.
Yeah, it's not like
It's
it's
not
not
projecting.
ambient. Like
It's not ambient. No, it's just a light.
And they call it ambient lighting. I actually usually turn it to something based on what color I'm on. So we'll go ahead and switch that to green since I got the green shirt on.
Oh. It is interesting because the longer that we've been in here, the more that I've adjusted to expecting it to drive like this.
Yes.
And the weird elements become less weird.
Yeah, for sure.
You start to adapt to them and get a better understanding for how the car is going to drive.
You know how it's going to accelerate. You know how it's going to brake.
Yeah.
That familiarity is going to help in its adoption.
If they can maintain the predictable nature.
Yes.
There are very smart people who work at Tesla, so I'm sure they've thought about this. But if you just sort of let the model have free reign, then you're subject to whatever changes in the training data come up. Existential stuff could be really interesting because what if, let's say you're taking in data now about how the car is driving itself and feeding that into the training data and saying this is how you should drive, like this car is driving, even though this car is sort of being self-driven.
Yeah.
So you
interesting. You
get this feedback loop of the car's not driving how we want it to, but we're using this as training data, or it's not driving in a human way. Or maybe people start to drive differently around Teslas, and if you're only using Teslas for your training data, or maybe there's some amount of inherent differences in driving style or something that Tesla drivers have, and if you're only using Tesla driving data, that's gonna bleed into your...
Well, it definitely tracks that they would just be using Tesla data because everyone's going at least 12 over, so...
Yeah.
And acceleration off the stop signs.
Yeah, I mean, that speculating, but maybe that's what causes that.
I am very impressed with how well it's done given the inclement weather.
Yeah.
These are tough because this is vision only. We have no USS, we have no LiDAR, this is all strictly the 7 cameras around my car.
Yeah, I would wonder, I mean, are they just visual spectrum cameras, or do they pick up IR?
No, I don't think so. And this is smart too. I mean, that's exactly what I would do in that situation. Maybe a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
But it has to do it's a stop and then go. But I mean, I think they're strictly cameras. I don't think they're picking up any depth at all.
I wonder how they perform in the dark.
I mean, it's dark now, but I definitely have used FSD in the dark, and it does work. So,
you just crank the ISO on those devils.
Yeah, I mean, what you're dealing with now is I'm interested. What it's gonna? Okay, it's gonna put me in the parking lot. I mean, we're dealing with what if rain gets on the camera?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do?
Is there some? I mean, I would say there's probably some model train.
Look at this. It almost looked like we're in 2 spots, but
it tried.
It has all the stuff.
It knows that when people pull into situations like this, they're going to pull up to the side of a building.
Yes,
because that's usually where the parking spot is.
It just went here, but it wasn't parking.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there's no context switching. It doesn't understand that there's a different... people, when they drive differently on a road versus in a parking lot because the goals there are different.
Right.
But it does know that usually when cars come off the road and into a place like this, they're going to pull into a spot on the side of the building.
Interesting that it went right. not left. I guess I find that sometimes I think it tries to go whichever route has the most right turns because they're inherently easier than left. Typically, like
Yeah.
safer, I guess, than right turns or left turns.
But is that? I mean, was the navigation initially telling you that you would have?
I didn't look.
Oh, okay.
I can go back and look.
Because
Maybe this is the fastest way.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is like, how much license does FSD, the sort of entity, have to make navigation decisions versus
well, like I
just
said,
doing what navigation tells us?
you mentioned sometimes it will go shortcuts. It will skip through things that the navigation says, and I have noticed sometimes that it will, instead of going like the way I would go, that's more direct necessarily, but has more stops. It'll go a way that's a little bit less direct, but it's more just free flowing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So less stop signs, less interactions with other things.
Yeah.
It will find like the path of least resistance, even if the path of least resistance isn't the shortest path.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
The path of least effort.
Yes. Which is good because there's less room for error in that sense. I mean, overall, as we're kind of getting towards the
I was going to say
here, what's kind of your? This is really your first extended ride in any car using a fully autonomous driving.
Sure.
What do you think?
I think it is really good. I think it drives basically like a person drives.
Yeah.
In a lot of situations, and in the situations that it doesn't, like if it were a person driving, I would expect there to be some friction, like there is when this is driving. Like it isn't doing anything that feels so far out of the ordinary that you feel the need to question it or that you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like every decision that it's making, it's either you can feel that it's erring on the side of caution or feels like a natural decision that anybody would have made. Which is impressive. I mean, that it speaks to how much progress we've made on doing things like this, how like confident Tesla is in this by putting it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's debatable. How much of that is confidence and how much of it is like, well, if we don't put this out, then we're not going to have enough data to do anything. So you almost need to put it out.
Yeah, it's almost a self-fulfilling thing a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure.
You have to let it bootstrap.
The rapid evolution of FSD has come from it switching from however many exponential lines of C++ to trained on the AI models.
Yeah.
It's just been every version. There have been a couple missteps, but I actually luckily have skipped over the misstep versions because they tend to stop. They'll put out a little bit of a feeler and then let people use it, and then if it's really bad, they stop the rollout.
Interesting.
And then they'll just feed it to less people and fix it and then spit it out to a wider audience.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, this is. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Exactly what anyone would do.
You do have to slow down a little bit to let them know that they're in the way.
Give them a little middle finger as you go by.
If I were not the person that I am, who's comfortable with dealing with betas of things, I feel like that might be a little frustrating. If you want a done product where you can put on FSD and fall asleep, this isn't it. Nothing that on this drive has given me that impression per se, but the context of knowing where this sits in terms of Tesla's releases and what you've talked about, it's in development. So it's not going to be perfect, and I wouldn't bet my life on it.
They did take the beta tag off of it, though. It is now just called FSD supervised, in parentheses, supervised. And I think that the supervised label is there intentionally so that eventually they can remove the supervised logo or the supervised like little tagline.
Yeah.
Meaning you may be able to fall asleep and
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Which, when that happens, is going to be fascinating, because will Tesla then take on responsibility? Say it goes awry, you know? Very interesting.
I really wonder. I mean, it must have been a huge undertaking inside of Tesla to step away from like a system that had been sort of handwritten
Mm-hmm.
and something that could feasibly be fully understood. I mean, there's some debate about, if a system becomes big enough, can any one person fully understand it, whatever. But like, to take this thing that was conceivably written by humans and transfer that into an AI model,
Mm-hmm.
where, yes, the training data is human, but like inferences that the model's making are entirely of its own making, and like you can tweak those a little bit, but as of right now, we don't have a good method of really understanding how a model is coming to the conclusions that it does.
Right.
Like, I wonder if Tesla as an organization is nervous about that at all, to not, if a Tesla FSDs itself off a cliff,
Right.
you don't have like a line of code to point to say,
Yes.
this is how that happened.
Yep.
You have to basically throw up your hands and say like, well,
Or try to like reverse engineer what happened.
yeah, exactly. And there are good ways of doing that. Like you said, you can reverse engineer it, put the model in as close to the same situation. But then what happens if it doesn't do that?
Just to point out, that pothole, I would have avoided that.
Yeah.
And it did not. So, little things here and there, like I said. We haven't had any critical interventions this drive, any of the drive that we've done, which has been really nice. But when I was driving it the other day, there was a light downtown by the Indies, like
On Broadway?
yes, yeah, very far, kind of far west, near Portland area.
Okay.
And there was the stoplight. It was like in the middle of the road by a fire station, and it was on, but there were no fire trucks going by. But interesting how far away it's put me here.
Yeah, it wants to take this turn wide.
Well,
or does it?
Or does it? But anyway, it was flying towards this red light, like going 35. And I'm like, this is not going to stop. All right, I'm going to take over now. This is not going to stop here. And so I quickly slammed on the brakes and stopped at the stoplight. And I immediately was like, okay, I want to do that again. Took it back around, and it stopped at the stoplight.
Yeah.
So it's like, that is a critical thing. If it's not stopping at a stoplight,
yes, not
like
stopping
that,
at a stoplight is kind of the worst thing you can do.
that's the worst thing. And it didn't do it. But then the very next time in the exact same situation, it did it. And so it's like, is it learning? Is it remembering? Is it, what's happening here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If I were Tesla, those situations would be what scares me.
Yeah. And I've never one time, and I've used FSD a lot, I've never one time had it not stop for a stoplight.
Yeah.
That's just a bare bones. I've had to do some weird stuff, but that is like a critical issue. And it makes me think, like, was this just a little slip up, a little oopsie, that kind of stuff? But then
or
it's like,
is there something in the training data that says I don't have to stop at stoplights if I don't want to?
Yeah.
That's
there's nobody around. There's no other cars. Can I just go through this?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the amount of data that you need to be able to drive something like this, I mean, it's massive. It's like incomprehensibly large how much data that you need to be able to train something like this. And you're not going to have the manpower or the time to be able to comb through all of that and say, was this good driving? Should we use this?
Right.
Well, they didn't get a ticket, so let's go ahead.
Right.
I mean, do you train some other model to look for good driving? How do you train that? And so maybe things like that can slip in. Maybe, there's enough, 1% of drivers will slip through a red light.
Right.
Does that mean I can do it 1% of the time?
Yeah. Are there fringe cases where this is okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we made it through the storm. We made it back to Chick-fil-A, which is always great. Colin, I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course.
It was a lot of fun. We'll definitely do this again as as more versions come out and more things are introduced. They've kind of made like 12.5 like the landing point for everything.
It feels like a baseline.
All of the like point versions after like 12.5 point are all going to be introducing new things like Banish and Smart Summon and FSD on the Cybertruck, and I'll definitely bring you along when we get that. And you know, like all these things these really exciting things are starting to happen with FSDs. I'm glad you're here on like the bottom floor of 12.5 so that you can really see how it progresses from here.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, well, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Do you have 12.5.1? What's your experience been so far? Let's talk about it down in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be among the first to see every single new video the second I hit publish. We'll see you in the next one.